Hello, Montgomery County. My name is Brandon Langer, and I'm the Program Administrator for Instructional Technology with Montgomery County Intermediate Unit. And this is Talking EdTech with MCIU, our podcast where we get a chance to hop on with vendors, providers, thought leaders in the areas of educational technology and see how we're moving forward in advancing classrooms around the country. Today, I am joined by Andrew from Talking Points, which is in my realm, an up-and-coming app, and I know it's been around for a while, but a tremendous platform around building equity around communication and connecting with all families across our classrooms. So Andrew, thank you for joining me today. And you want to give us a little background on yourself and Talking Points? We'd love to know a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Brandon. A pleasure to be here this morning. As Brandon said, my name is Andrew Unrein. I'm the Director of Sales for Talking Points. I was a former classroom teacher, educator myself for 13 years, spent 2 years as a building administrator. Talking Points has been around since 2015. We're an educational technology nonprofit focused on driving impact and energy and equity in the two-way communication era for families and schools. We're going to talk a little bit today about the two components that we have available. We have a free organic product available for teachers and staff at the school level, and then a licensed product available for schools and districts as well.
That's awesome. And you kind of touched on the point that I heard when this was brought to my attention as a product that I think you guys spend a lot of time in this space, directing energy toward, and that is the term impactful two-way communication. So can you just tell us a little bit about what Talking Points means by that, and maybe a little bit about how you feel that your product can contribute toward it?
Yeah, absolutely. So this whole idea for Talking Points spawned off of the experience our CEO, E.J. Lim, had growing up, where her family was an immigrant family, had English-speaking capabilities. Her mom was very versed in English speaking, but her classmates' families were not. And the idea kind of spawned from that is how, I don't want to say how limiting, but how many barriers developed for those families where they couldn't engage, or they wanted to be able to engage with their school environment, but they just weren't able to, maybe because of language barriers, educational equity issues, et cetera, et cetera. And so it kind of became her mission through growing up and becoming an adult and developing this path of her own to develop something to help those families succeed in that aspect. And we've taken that to heart. I mean, our whole impact is to engage with as many families and communities as possible, to provide every family with an equitable opportunity to engage in their students' education. The idea is to better the existence and better the academic experience for every student.
And how does that look differently in your platform versus maybe some other platforms that are out there in the translation space? For those that aren't familiar with Talking Points, how does it work? What does it look like?
Yeah, great question. Our focus is to make the greatest impact for our multilingual and under-resourced families. So one of the beauties of Talking Points is there's literally no technology lift for the family. It's accessible across all platforms, it's agnostic. As a family, I have the ability to receive two-way communication in general SMS text messaging, which is where our families are in today's day and age. We meet them where they are. Or if I'm a family member who needs extra support via equity and access features, we have a mobile application that families can access as well as a web application that has some of those same equity and access features. And then ultimately, the second piece is we've really spent a lot of time and energy and engineering effort in creating a translation platform that is unique to all others across the board. All of your similar products in the EdTech space use a Google Translate model, very basic in machine translation, which is serviceable to an extent. The issue you run into in the education space is there's so much language that is very specific to our industry, right? Specific to our space. Things like IEPs, for example, kindergarten roundup, terminology that seems very simplistic to those of us who have that education background. But when you translate those concepts into alternative language, they can become really confusing, which is what machine learning does, which was what machine translation does. What we've done at Talking Points is we've actually incorporated human translators into our platform in a number of different ways. One is they've actually helped us build our own machine model. So we start with the Microsoft and Google Translate model. We've built upon that. We've used those human translators to help us build an education-specific glossary of terms. So those same terms I mentioned before that aren't contextualized in translation, we've solved that problem. for our language offerings. We also use our human translators for message review in certain capacities. So if I, as an administrator, as a teacher, can schedule a message in advance, our human translators will vet that content, make sure it goes out to those families in the best contextual way, right? So they have the best opportunity at understanding. The idea is to simply remove that anxiety, remove that angst, and that inability to truly comprehend, and therefore make it more engaging for families, regardless of what their educational capacity is and what their language capacity is. It's designed to meet everyone where they are.
Yep, and certainly some of the unique features you just highlighted about having human presence in that experience is important. Contextual experience around education. We have a term around the office sometimes. Some of us say is edu-speak, because we'll talk in acronyms and all these other things that if you don't live in this space, it might not be something that you totally understand, especially if English is not your primary language. And then, how many languages does this support? I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of different supports in there. First of all, in terms of being able to schedule and have things reviewed ahead of time, but how many languages does a Talking Points support?
Yeah, currently, so our current model supports 125 unique languages. That number should escalate to 145 by the end of the calendar year. A lot of that has to do with the continued global support to try and make language acquisition more universal, right? And obviously, we are champions of that. So we're always looking to try and grow our language capacity for all of our families.
Yeah, and I like that you're a former educator. I know that you as a company are staffed with former educators or people that work in education. How do you think that plays a role in a little bit in what your organization is able to provide in terms of building this product?
I think our job roles, our job histories definitely speak to the impact that we're seeking, right? So it's probably the first organization I've ever been a part of that truly focuses solely on the impact of what we're trying to do. We're trying to improve family engagement across all capacities for all families, and then there go impact students' lives in that way. Being teamed with primarily former educators, everyone sees the value of that mission, right? We know that families are the first teachers for our students. We know that family engagement is 2 times more effective than any other methodology in improving students' education. Our goal and sole focus is to drive that impact, to allow everyone, regardless of background, to be able to engage with their schools. And there go again, present the best opportunity to support students. And as former teachers, we all buy into that. It becomes the core focus of what we do, which is also what makes us a little unique as a nonprofit. We do not solely focus on revenue as an organization. Our mission is to drive that family engagement impact. And so our funders believe in our product. They believe in what we're trying to do, the mission that we're trying to solve. And ultimately, that allows us to put impact first. It allows us to put effort into product development, enhanced translation, et cetera, without solely being focused on a bottom line, which is unique and honestly pretty awesome to be a part of.
Yep, I think it's great. I think the next thing we'd love to do is just kind of show some of the user or anyone watching this just a little bit about how the platform's structured, a little bit how it operates. So can we take a look and just see how Talking Points works?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay.
So, all right, Brandon. So we're now in the Talking Points platform. This is our demo environment, the environment we share when people want to learn more about our product. And we're sharing with school district administrators and school administrators. To me, one of the beauties about Talking Points is we have the ability to solve for lots of different challenges in the education space, right? You could be struggling with attendance. You could be struggling with communication for special education. We've talked about multilingual supports already. But to me, as a former teacher, a former coach, a former administrator, a former sponsor, one of the unique values that Talking Points brings is that you can legitimately create any use case for its success. We allow for something called non-rostered staff within the platform, which means that most of your similar platforms allow for classroom communication, right? Two-way communication between the classroom and the family. At Talking Points, we allow for two-way communication between all facets of the school environment. So if you have an attendance secretary or a counselor or perhaps a family school liaison, and they need to engage with an individual family or a group of families, we allow for that to happen. I mentioned low tech lift earlier. Not only is it low tech lift for your families, it's low tech lift for your teachers and your school staff as well. It literally takes 3 clicks to send a message at talking points. So once I'm logged into the platform, I have the ability to click send a message, and I can select my recipient groups up above. Very simple, easy to do. I can filter those by language. I can write a unique message to those families, or we have, and schools and users are able to build their own message templates that reiterate certain key concepts in our space. These can be as simple as creating and sending birthday announcements and messages, which starts that proactive, positive relationship environment. We have templates centered around attendance. We're working on templates for social emotional learning now. These allow you to kind of reiterate certain key fundamental concepts that are core roots for your school space, right, or your district space, which is, to me, really unique. But I can select or type a message in. Notice that we have add in fields, which is direct correlation to data integration. So we integrate with your student information system, we pull appropriate data in, and you can build in some of those fields that we pull in into your message. And ultimately those fields will be filled as that message goes out. It's a very simple, easy feature to take advantage of. Notice the character limit in the bottom right. We have a 600 character limit for talking points, which we find is perfect for quality communication. You do have the ability to add attachments, files, folders. If there's something that's a little bit larger that needs to go out, we provide you the opportunity to do that. Also notice one thing I wanted to point out is this orange flag in the right corner here. We have, as I said earlier, we provide support for the best translation value, okay? Any message that's worded and written that goes beyond a 5th grade reading level, we actually flag that message for at least review by the writer to let you know that your reading level is becoming a little bit higher. The reason for that is the higher the reading level becomes, the more difficult it is to contextualize that translation. So all that does is, as the sender, causes me to go back and double check my verbiage, make sure I've written it in the best capacity for translation. And then we actually will provide translation supports there in the writing of that message as well, if needed. So once I'm done writing that message, all I have to do is click send, or I can click schedule. Remember earlier I mentioned that you can schedule a message 24 hours in advance, and our human translators will vet those appropriate languages. That's the best way to do that, is to click schedule and schedule that message out, or I can send it immediately. If we send it immediately, it's not vetted by human translators, but it is run through our human translator algorithms, our machine model, which, as we stated before, has that education specific glossary of terms and whatnot built into it. So that's it. That's how easy it is to send a message. Now, once I've sent that message, the user receives it. I'm going to discard this real quick. The user receives it in their own method of acceptance, right? So that could be SMS text if they choose, or a user could choose to use the mobile application. Once they receive that message, we've now started a unique conversation strand between myself and that family. I send my communication out in English, and in this case, the family receives it in their translated selected language, right? And home language is one of those fields that we incorporate through student information system integration. As a user, a family user, I can always alter my home language preference if I choose. And sometimes that takes place if there's a documented home language that's really not needed by the family, or potentially vice versa. One thing I love about this, though, is when I go back and I look at my specific communication strands, I actually have access to the translated context of that message. So if I sent this message out in English, here's the English version, but it also shows me the Haitian Creole translation right below that as well. Great for record keeping, great for administration, also great for us to be able to go back and quality control and vet our translation histories to make sure that things are coming out appropriately. Having a great model is fantastic, but it doesn't incorporate sometimes for slang or potentially grammatical errors. So it's great for us to be able to learn from some of the interactions that our families are having. Other things that, without getting too deep here, there are a couple other features that I think are really unique and, to me, really valuable when it comes to talking points. And one is a polling feature. Not only can you send two-way communication from anyone in the school space to any family or all families or groups of families, but you also have the ability to solicit feedback from them by using our polling feature. Polls are constructed in pretty much the exact same way that a text message is. I add my recipients, I filter for language, I type my polling question, I provide my potential answers as options, and then that poll goes out in either a standard SMS text, like what we do with our general two-way communication, or via the app as well. And then just like the surveys and things you get on your cell phone now, as a family member, I have the ability to respond to each and every question via an automated response, check 1 for yes, 2 for no, etc. And then we will gather those responses and allow you to see a visual breakdown of all that activity. So if you're trying to pool your school space on, post-COVID rollout plans, for instance, or do we need to work on family engagement at the site level? Any question or unique space you want to ask and get feedback from your families on, you're able to do via talking points, which I think is incredibly valuable. When you talk about all the different use cases, all the different spaces that you could support with a platform such as ours, soliciting feedback on maybe the best way to use it would be a great start. And then, go ahead, Brandon.
Oh, I was just going to say, I love a couple things here that you've called out. One, you're modeling the ease of use of the platform, which it is very simple to navigate. It feels very familiar. I love the fact that there are multiple, there's the ability to receive messages through multiple ways, multiple means. So via SMS text versus via web app versus your own, I think you said baked in application that you could have on your phone. My only question was, how would the user specify their language? Like that, you said, I'm going to send in my language. It's just going to auto send it in the language that this family has specified, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So one of the fields we pull from your student information system is home language. There are times where there could be a discrepancy there, and that can be updated one of two ways. Either as the school administration, I can go in and edit that field. So the next time we do a sync, which syncs occur on a nightly basis, that home language will update automatically. Or as a family user, if I'm in the mobile application, I actually have the ability to alter my language preference as a user. Correct. Yeah. So we don't see that issue come up too often, but it can happen from time to time where maybe the wrong language has been captured in documentation, or they have that a home language is needed, but potentially the English understandability for that family is very high, and they would just prefer to receive that communication in English. And we can make that adjustment pretty easily. And then any manual adjustments made within talking points. So as a family member, if I adjust my home language setting, that supersedes that nightly sync. So you don't have to worry about it reverting back to whatever the choice was before. Correct. Yeah, correct. Exactly. Yeah. Good question. Last thing I'd show as far as products concerned is we know that in the education space, it's becoming, it has been forever, but it becomes even more important every day. The ability to show proof and data of the work that you're doing, right? So Talking Points provides an analytics dashboard at both the all three, the district, the school, and the individual user level that allows us to, and again, this is our mock or kind of our demo site. So the numbers are all rounded and very nice and neat, but it allows you to see everything related to the language breakdowns within your site, district, or classroom, the breakdowns between your EL and non-EL students. We do, because we're trying to reach every family, track invalid phone numbers. So in order to launch with Talking Points, we do access contact data, family contact data from the beginning, but we don't use those actual numbers. Talking Points supplies a unique user phone number for every school and site user and every family user. But in order to start that process, to start that two-way communication, we do have to have that valid number first. And so we track invalid phone numbers, which can actually be really useful in the school setting. A lot of times schools are sending out, let's say, a robocall or emails, for et cetera, and they fall to invalid locations. That's difficult to track. It's difficult to stay on top of. You can use Talking Points to support that a little bit. Also, that first message that goes out to families, they do have the ability to unsubscribe if they choose. We track those as well. So perhaps a family unsubscribed by accident, or maybe there's a purpose or a reason behind that unsubscription. You as the admin user now can see who those unsubscribed contacts are, go back and make contact with those families, figure out, is this something they did intentionally? Is this something they'd like to rectify? Maybe dig a little bit deeper. Again, it could be potentially a language barrier that caused that unsubscription, and you can address that moving forward. We also provide teacher engagement and family engagement data. So my apologies, it's kind of reverting on me. There we go. So you can see by teacher who's been successful sending class-wide announcements or individual messages. You see a lot of use at the teacher level for class-wide announcements, right? Sharing out of content. But where we really see the value of talking points is in that individual communication, the value to create proactive engagement with each and every family, to really work on the themes and the goals of the school space, whether that's in the classroom or the schools as a whole or the district as a whole. And the best way to do that is to do it proactively. And so we really look for those high levels of two-way engagement from the teacher perspective. And then ultimately, you can see that data from the family side as well. I can see each and every family. I can see how many messages they've sent to teachers. I apologize, it keeps refreshing. How many messages have been sent to teachers in the school, how many messages have been engaged with. And ultimately, I can look at the conversation history of all of my families. If we're seeing families that are showing real high levels of positivity, we can go back and look at the communication history and figure out how was that relationship cultivated. And then on the flip side, if we're struggling in certain areas or at certain grade levels, or even with an individual family, we can go back and look at the conversation history and say, to what extent have we really tried to engage these people, and what has that communication looked like? So not only are we providing the raw data, but we will provide you with partner success support that will help you analyze that data and be able to go back and look for trends and uniquenesses to it, and then create a plan in order to escalate its value. Whenever we establish a partnership with the school or district, we ask them quite simply, what do you want to get out of this relationship? What are your goals? And I mentioned some of them earlier. It could be at a district level, increasing graduation rates. It could be improved attendance. It could be lots of different things. We help create engagement goals around those initiatives for our partners, and then we provide the data to support them and back it up.
Yep. And Andrew, I think it's clear, even just from your examples here, just in kind of wrapping up here, I think some of the best parts of what you've showed us today is that it's not isolated to just one deliverer of communication. It's span across the whole system. So you have district, even staff and coaches and others that can be wrapped into the platform, because that's a whole other level of communication and engagement that sometimes gets set on the side, particularly if you have staff that are either contracted workers or not there during the school day, right? Being able to communicate with families, keep them in the know of things. I also just absolutely, and I said this already, I think, love the fact that there's a human support element to what you're doing. And that contextual piece is something that I, as a teacher, never had. It was always, if I used a machine-based thing, I was like, well, I hope this is right, So the ability to schedule those maybe more complicated, or ones you really like to have another eye on with your team to kind of review and take put professional eyes on is pretty unique. I don't know of anything else that does that. So that's very cool.
Yeah, I think ultimately that's the reason we targeted it, right? Because it's great to have supports, but knowing that those supports can sometimes cause more confusion than they clear, I think is a barrier in and of itself, right? There's not a family out there that doesn't want to be involved and to have the best educational opportunity for their student. Sometimes it's just things that get in the way of that. And the goal is to try and remove those barriers and allow everyone to participate in the manner that they wish and that they want to.
Yep.
So.
Well, I know we have a couple of districts around Montgomery County, and I'm sure throughout Pennsylvania, that are already using talking points. But for one that might be interested in learning more, should they reach out to you, or is how could a district take next steps?
Yeah, absolutely. So happy to facilitate that communication, or at least the first steps to communication. You can go to our website, which is talkingpts.org. There's opportunities there to fill out a request for information. That's one way that people can engage with us. You can email me directly, andrew@talkingpts.org. I'd be happy to either communicate with them individually, or we have account executives in the area that we're more than happy to answer questions as well. And then honestly, we have some demo videos and things available both on our website and on YouTube as well, where people can learn a little bit more about the platform. As I mentioned in the beginning, we have our organic product that an individual teacher can sign up for up to 5 classes and roster up to 200 students. And then we have supports for whole school and whole district environments as well. So.
Awesome. Well, I will link all that information across the bottom of the video and stuff as people are watching. They're probably seeing it now. And I just want to thank you again for hopping on with me today to kind of show us the platform, talk about your intention, and just I think it's just so nice to have any nonprofit driving innovation in the space. I think that is unique, as you highlighted. So I think that's terrific, but also just appreciate what you guys are doing in service to families. So thank you for that.
I appreciate that, Brandon. Thank you very much. It's been a great experience for me.
Not a problem. Well, again, this is Talking EdTech with MCIU. Thank you for watching, and we'll have more episodes coming out throughout the rest of the summer and into next fall. If you're a product vendor and you're interested, just shoot me an email. We'd love to have you on and showcase what you're doing in the space of EdTech, and I hope everyone has a great summer. Thank you.